Life is a journey of exploration, learning, and growth. Basically, the world is full of fascinating stuff. Join me, Aristides Marousas, as I uncover interesting facts and discuss big ideas on Stuff Explained from the Motley Experience. Experience your world. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and happy belated Halloween. And I know this is a few days late, but that's what this episode is going to be about. Halloween. Where were the origins of this very interesting, very special holiday from? How did it get here to the U.S. to become what has, through Western culture, become, honestly, quite a global phenomenon? We're going to go into that in this episode of Stuff Explained. Halloween has its origins in the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, which was celebrated on November 1st, around 2,000 years ago. This event marked the end of summertime and harvesting period and the beginning of the winter. Now, the winters in ancient Ireland and Britain were dark and cold and associated with death, and it was believed that on the eve of this new year, the boundary between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. This thin veil between realms made the presence and return of spirits possible. They were feared to cause all sorts of disturbances and damage to crops. It was also believed that this time made it easier for Celtic priests to predict the future. To celebrate Samhain, the Celts built large bonfires where they burned crops and animals in sacrifice to their gods. They also wore costumes of animal heads in skins to hide from the spirits that were roaming the land, and this, of course, would later translate to the costumes that we see today. The Roman Empire also had an influence on Halloween. By 43 AD, the Roman Empire had conquered much of the Celts' lands. During Roman occupation, the Roman holidays of Feralia and the celebration of Pomona were slowly combined with Samhain. Feralia was when Romans commemorated the passing of the dead, and the celebration of Pomona was a celebration of the Roman goddess of fruit and trees, and she was symbolized by an apple, and it's thought that this might be where the tradition of bobbing for apples on Halloween came from. A few centuries later, the Christian leader Pope Gregory III moved the observance of All Saints' Days, which honored Christian martyrs, from May 13th to November 1st. As Christianity began to be adopted in Celtic lands, older Celtic rites were being replaced in favor of church-sanctioned holidays. In 1000 AD, November 2nd became All Souls' Day to honor the dead. It was similar to Samhain in that it was celebrated with bonfires, parades, and costumes. The offering of crops and animals as sacrifices to the gods was replaced with offerings of food and drink to the poor as a Christian display of generosity and goodwill. All Saints' Day was also known as All Hallows, and the night before, which was traditionally the night of Samhain, became to be called All Hallows' Eve, and eventually this became Halloween. Halloween was slow to take hold in America. The earliest known celebrations were these play parties, mostly in the southern colonies, the southern region, and these were public gatherings to celebrate the harvest. There would be dancing and singing, as well as stories shared of the dead and even fortune-telling. This began to change in the second half of the 19th century when waves of immigrants entered the United States. The popularization of Halloween is largely attributed to the millions of Irish immigrants who arrived during that time period. Just one example of their influence was the jack-o'-lantern, and the original variety were actually made out of turnips, potatoes, and beets, but because pumpkins were native to the United States and easier to cut, they eventually became integrated, and that is how the jack-o'-lantern came to be what we know it as today. At the beginning of the 20th century, Halloween parties for children and adults became popular. Trick-or-treating as we know it today didn't really become popular until the mid-20th century, but from then on, books, television shows, and movies really helped to make Halloween the true staple of American culture that it is. Stay up to date on all the latest content and announcements from the Motley Experience by visiting themotleyexperience.com/connect. Then enter your email address and become a member of the Insider Weekly newsletter. Experience your world. Retcon Industries provides tailor-made music for professional wrestling, podcasts, trailers, and more, while also releasing their own original music. I personally have used Retcon Industries for professional wrestling and also for this podcast. All the music you hear in this podcast is by Retcon Industries. For more information, go to www.retconindustries.com or email my good friend Greg at retcongreg@gmail.com. You can also visit them on Facebook and Instagram at Retcon Industries. Here are some fun facts. So 1/4 of all candy sold annually in the United States is purchased specifically for Halloween. Today, Americans spend about $9 billion every year on Halloween, making it the second largest commercial holiday after Christmas. Costumes for pets are becoming increasingly popular, especially among millennials. 20% bought pet costumes in 2018, which was up from 16% in 2017. Black cats were thought to bring bad luck and became iconic Halloween imagery, and this may have come from the Middle Ages when the superstitious believed that witches avoided detection by turning themselves into black cats. In the 18th and 19th centuries, young women would toss apple peels over their shoulders in the hope that the peels would fall on the floor in the shape of their future husband's initials. But a spookier method was when they would sit in front of mirrors in a completely dark room with nothing but a candle in their hands while looking over their shoulders in the mirror reflection, hoping to see some sort of apparition of their future husband's face. Would not want to do that. And that rounds up the fun facts and the history, the 101 on the history of Halloween, where it started from. It came from the Celts. That's where it's mostly attributed to anyways. And after combining with Roman culture and then the Christian religion, it eventually made its way over to the United States and the colonies and was really revitalized with the influx of Irish immigrants, especially during the time of the Irish potato famine. And you can go back to a previous episode on potatoes where we talk about that. And then over the course of decades and centuries became a much more commercial holiday and what we know it as today. So if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to reach out on social, specifically Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. It's at Motley Experience. That's MOTLEY XPERIENCE. Have to think about that twice. Use the hashtag Stuff Explained. Share your Halloween costumes, your Halloween plans, or, I guess past plans, whatever actually transpired with us. What you thought of this episode, previous episodes, anything. Again, as I say at the end of pretty much every episode, I'd love to get some sort of Stuff Explained community going on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, where we start sharing these ideas and talking about our opinions on them and broaden our perspectives and broaden our experience. And I use the word experience because, again, this is all part of my blog, The Motley Experience. So check out themotleyexperience.com. I actually have featured a short fiction thriller that I wrote about a year or two ago called My Dear Sister. So go check that out if you have time, if you're interested in short fiction. I'm proud of it. I think it's my best piece of work, but that's just me. I might be a little bit biased, but please go ahead, check it out. We have a bunch of other great content on the Motley Experience, a lot of lifestyle type articles related to wellness and approaching different aspects of just really life in general. Similar to sort of the big idea episodes I talk about in that kind of sphere. So again, hope you had a great Hallows Eve, great Halloween. Hopefully there were more treats than tricks, and I'll speak to you guys next week. Stuff Explained is written and produced by me, Aristides Marusas. Music is produced by the talented Greg Massey of Retcon Industries. Visit themotleyexperience.com for more thoughtful original content, and you can also find links to the sources used for each episode of Stuff Explained. Like us on Facebook at The Motley Experience, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Motley Experience, and use the hashtag Stuff Explained. If you like this episode, leave a review, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thank you for listening.